Hello, I am Russell Day. Today I'm going to be going over the life of Socrates. Socrates is an enigma, and despite having not written anything, is considered one of the philosophers who changed philosophy itself. So, who is Socrates, and why is he so important without having written anything? So how do we know Socrates if he did not record anything about himself? Well, everything we know about Socrates was recorded by various people writing about him with information about him that differs in many respects, leaving us to guess which, if any, are accurate representations of Socrates. The three primary sources we have about Socrates are Aristophanes, Xenophon, and Plato. Aristophanes was a playwright, so his accounts are most likely exaggerated on the life of Socrates. Xenophon is a soldier historian who corroborates with Plato. Plato is the supposed student of Socrates and becomes a philosopher later in life. Xenophon and Plato are two more reliable sources because of their role in Socrates' life, Xenophon being a historian already, and Plato being his student. Socrates was born circa 469 BCE in one of Athens' 10 tribes, Antiochus, in the deme of Alopeci, and grew up like any other boy, receiving a formal education. He then went on to complete his 2 mandatory years in the Athenian army. In 432 BCE, he was sent out to Podia to put down a revolt and returned to Athens 3 years later. There, he distinguished himself by saving a fellow soldier, Alcibiades. 5 years later, he was again drafted to fight in the Battle of Delium in 424, which they lost, and then fought yet another battle a year later, which also led to another disaster. So although his adult years fighting for Athens was a bit disappointing and nothing short of average, he did portray bravery and selflessness during it all. Only after these wars did Socrates become an intellectual, during the peace made by the treaty between Sparta and Athens, named Nyctius. So, what was so special about Socrates, and what set him apart from other philosophers or teachers? Not only did Socrates teach for free, but his teachings were abnormal and shunned upon by important leaders. For Socrates did not teach knowledge, but rather he taught a way of life. He taught his students to question, give thought, and reflect on their preconceived notions. To Socrates, education was the kindling of a flame, not the filling of a vessel. Also known as the Socratic method of teaching, asking questions to a student until they come to their own conclusion about the topic. Sadly, these intellectual conversations would soon come to an end, for soon after, the Peloponnesian War broke out. Then the war with the Spartans came, the final and last war Socrates would see, before he was unjustly tried and executed. Socrates was executed on the grounds that he was an evildoer and a curious person who searches into things under the earth and in heaven, and he makes the worse appear the better cause, and he teaches the aforesaid doctrines to others. So basically, they're saying that Socrates is an evil person who corrupts the youth and who does not believe in the gods of the state, but believes in gods of his own. These claims are not only faulty, but Socrates answers each one. He believes in the divinities of the state, as he says his sole goal or purpose in life is to see if the oracle of Delphi is correct, a priest of Apollo. For the oracle stated that Socrates is the wisest in the world and that there was none wiser than him. So he is set out to see if she is right or wrong. Secondly, he does not corrupt the youth and is not an evil person, as he is a philosopher, a teacher, and teaches his students to change their perspective and always question the things around them. He does not make the better appear the worse cause, simply because he makes his subject question his predetermined belief, whether it be right or wrong, causing them to think about them and possibly change their opinion. None of these reasons seem to even warrant the death penalty, even if they were true. So why was Socrates killed? He was convicted by the slimmest of margins and was given a chance to argue for a more lenient penalty rather than the death penalty. But being as he was, Socrates was so confident in himself that he argued that they should pay a fine of 30 minae, or 6 times Socrates' net worth. So he was eventually convicted and sentenced to death using hemlock. His students offered him an escape, but Socrates denies them this and instead insists that he must go out this way. Socrates says, "Now if death be of such a nature, I say that to die is gain, for eternity is then only a single night. But if death is a journey to another place, and there, as men say, all the dead abide, what good, O my friends and judges, can be greater than this? Above all, I shall then be able to continue my search into true and false knowledge, as in this world, so also in the next. And I shall find out who is wise, and who pretends to be wise and is not. In another world, they do not put a man to death for asking questions. Assuredly not." This quote shows that Socrates lives his teachings. He's an embodiment of knowledge over everything else. So, who is Socrates? Well, you have to decide for yourself whether he is real or an intricate lie. His impact on philosophy is undeniable. His dedication to putting knowledge about gods above his preconceptions, and most importantly, above his life, has led many others along the path to strive for knowledge and truth. Thank you.